Arrogance led to the BTK killer's downfall. A serial killer terrorized Wichita, Kansas from 1974 to 1991. The BTK killer, Dennis Rader, adopted the moniker Bind, Torture, Kill, which described the heinous techniques he used to kill his victims. On January 19, 1991, he murdered his last victim, Dolores Davis, after which the killings inexplicably ceased. Without any leads, the investigation became cold. That is, until 2004, when a local newspaper, the Wichita Eagle, started speculating that the serial killer who had long terrorized the region may have been killed or imprisoned for a different crime. Rader's arrogance kicked in, and he started mailing letters to local newspapers, television stations, and radio stations, informing them he was still alive, well, and a free man, as opposed to letting his crimes fade from the public spotlight. He tormented the authorities by giving them crossword puzzles, word searches, images, and even chapter plans for a BTK story. Welcome to Bad Things. In this video, we look at the BTK killer, Dennis Rader, and how his arrogance led to his arrest and conviction. On January 15, 1974, a man broke into a house in Wichita, Kansas, and murdered its 4 occupants, Joseph and Julie Otero, and their 2 youngest children, Josephine 11 and Joseph Jr. 9. This was the first in a string of killings perpetrated by the individual known as the BTK killer. Born in Pittsburgh, Kansas on March 9, 1945, the future BTK killer grew up in Wichita and had a seemingly ordinary upbringing. However, he revealed in a 2005 interview that he sort of had some problems in elementary school. "I had sexual fantasies," he said, "probably more than usual. All men undoubtedly have at least one sexual fantasy. Probably mine was simply a little weirder than others." Rader stated in detail that he would tie rope around his wrists and ankles and drape a sack over his head, an ominous foreshadowing given that he used the latter technique while murdering his victims. He also cut out photographs of attractive women from magazines and drew chains and gags on them to aid his fantasies. In addition, it seems that Rader displayed one of the indications outlined by the McDonald triad, which, as noted by Healthline, often predicts whether a young child would become a serial killer or violent person as an adult. He said that he used to hang and torture stray animals as a youngster, which is a precursor to committing more severe crimes. Rader derived sexual gratification from causing people pain, but he claimed that his true reason was what he dubbed Factor X. Dr. Robert Mendoza, a neuropsychologist from Harvard, interviewed Rader, and portions of the jailhouse interview were shown on television. In these, Rader expressed the following.
"I use it. I actually think I'm maybe possessed with demons. I was dropped on my head when I was a kid. I've talked to some theological Christian people, and some of those people are really strong. They actually think, well, the Bible says that there's demons within you or can come into you. That's the only thing I can figure out. I have, something drove me to do this. The normal people just don't do this.
You can't stop it.
I can't stop it. It's just, it controls me. It's like it's in the driver's seat."
However, Factor X was not always in control. While Rader was carrying out his perverted sexual fantasies on innocent people, he was also raising 2 children in Kansas with his wife, serving as a church and Boy Scout leader, and keeping a respectable job. The BTK killer was able to live this double life because he was skilled at compartmentalizing his life. He called the part of himself that enjoyed binding, torturing, and killing others the Minotaur. Dennis Rader acknowledged in court to killing 10 people. As part of a plea agreement, Rader provided specifics about each. Those who heard his terrifying description of the atrocities in open court observed that he was quite matter-of-fact. Later witnesses stated that Rader had shown little remorse for his heinous actions. His final victim, Dolores E. Davis, was found on February 1, 1991. How BTK's arrogance led to his capture. By 2004, the inquiry into the BTK killer was believed to be a cold case. In 2004, Robert Beatty, an attorney, planned to write a book on the BTK murders. As far as the authorities were aware, the murders ceased in the late 1970s, 30 years after the occurrence of the first murder. Nightmare in Wichita would be his memorial to the victims, shedding light on atrocities that had been mostly forgotten. Dennis Rader was not going to allow anybody else to tell his story. The Wichita Eagle received a letter from someone using the name Bill Thomas Kilman in March of 2004. The author of the letter said he killed Vicki Wegerle on September 16, 1986, and included images of the crime scene and a copy of her stolen driver's license. Before this, it had not been conclusively proven that BTK was Wegerle's killer. DNA obtained from beneath Wegerle's fingernails revealed previously undiscovered DNA evidence to the police. They later began testing the DNA of hundreds of males to find the serial killer. More than 1,300 DNA samples were collected and analyzed in all. In May 2004, the Wichita television station KAKE received a mail with chapter titles for BTK story, false identification cards, and a crossword puzzle. On June 9th in Wichita, a package was discovered tied to a stop sign at the intersection. It included explicit accounts of the Otero killings, as well as an illustration titled "The Sexual Thrill is My Bill." A chapter list for a projected book titled "The BTK Story" was also enclosed. The first chapter was titled "A Serial Killer is Born." In July, a parcel placed in the return slot of a public library included more bizarre material, including a claim that he was responsible for the murder of Jake Allen, 19, in Arrogance, Kansas, earlier that month. This allegation was untrue, and the cause of death was determined to be suicide. In October 2004, a manila envelope was dropped in a Wichita UPS box. It included several cards with imagery of terror and child slavery, a poem threatening the life of lead investigator Lieutenant Ken Landwehr, and a forgery of Rader's autobiography with many facts about his life. In December 2004, the BTK murderer sent Wichita police another package. This time, the box was discovered at Murdoch Park in Wichita. It included Nancy Fox's driver's license, which was taken from the murder scene, as well as a doll symbolically chained at the wrists and feet with a plastic bag wrapped over its head. Rader tried to put a cereal box in the bed of a pickup truck at a Home Depot in Wichita in January 2005, but the owner of the vehicle discarded the package. The item was eventually recovered from the garbage when Rader sent a letter to a local television station requesting what had happened to it. Upon viewing surveillance footage of the parking lot, law enforcement officers saw a man driving a black Jeep Cherokee leaving the box in the pickup. In February 2005, further postcards were received to KAKE, and another cereal box with a tied doll was discovered in a remote area. Rader felt bulletproof at this point and wanted to tell his story, but one communication at a time was too overwhelming for him. He decided that mailing it on a floppy disk would be much simpler. In the Rice Krispies box communique, the correspondence that led to his capture, he asked the police, "Can I communicate with floppy and not be traced to a computer? Be honest." The message requested the placement of a classified ad if it was actually untraceable. The cops lied and responded in the prepared affirmative language. "Rex, it will be okay." Rader believed he was a genius and on par with the authorities, despite the fact that he was far from either. At Christ Lutheran Church, Rader informed the pastor that he needed to leave at once for a meeting. Instead, he plugged the disc into the church computer and printed papers to accompany the disc in the mail, not realizing that the disc would include the username of the author, Dennis, and the machine's location. A simple internet search revealed that Dennis Rader was the president of Christ Lutheran Church. When detectives went by Rader's home, they saw a black Jeep Cherokee parked in the driveway, the same sort of vehicle shown in the Home Depot surveillance footage. This was substantial circumstantial evidence against Rader, but more direct evidence was needed to detain him. The police got a warrant to analyze a pap smear sample collected from Rader's daughter at the Kansas State University medical facility. DNA testing revealed a familial match between the pap smear and the material from Wegerle's fingernails. This suggested that the murderer was closely connected to Rader's daughter, and together with the other evidence, led to Rader's arrest. On his way home at lunch on February 25, 2005, Rader saw a lengthy line of police vehicles, and he realized he was done playing his cat-and-mouse game with the police. Once arrested, he was further enraged by the betrayal.
I need to ask you this question.
I need to ask you.
Sure.
How can you lie? How can you lie?
Because I was trying to catch you.
The prosecution contrasted Rader's apology, which he delivered in a meandering 30-minute monologue on August 18th, to an Academy Awards acceptance speech. The incapacity of psychopaths to understand the emotional content of words has been cited as an example of a characteristic often noticed in psychopaths. He was given 10 consecutive life sentences, each carrying a minimum of 175 years. He was sent to the El Dorado Correctional Facility. When the victim's relatives' remarks from the court hearings were broadcast on the radio, Rader started to cry. He is now in solitary confinement for his protection, with 1 hour of daily exercise and 3 showers each week. Beginning in 2006, he was granted television and radio access, magazine reading rights, and other privileges for good conduct. Rader's arrogance and ego led to his eventual capture. Rader called himself the Minotaur. Police Lieutenant Ken Lendware was his Theseus. Thank you for watching Bad Things. Hit the subscribe button, like button, and notification bell, and share our channel for our up-and-coming true crime videos.